Good afternoon. I'd like to thank each of you for attending this briefing announcement to discuss the publication of the 2014 Internal Affairs Report for the Columbia Police Department. Before we get started, Mayor Benjamin would like to make a comment.
Chief, I know better by now than to give us a microphone. He still has something to say. I did want to say something on behalf of myself, on behalf of all city council, our city manager, and the leadership of this city. Many of you not in elective office, but in this very room. We're very proud and very thankful of the men and women that make up the Columbia Police Department. We're thankful for Chief Holbrook and his command staff for their leadership in making this report and our Justice for All initiative a priority. We're thankful for the Office of Professional Standards and the Internal Affairs Unit for their diligence in pulling all this information together, and we're thankful and proud of all of our officers for their selfless commitment to serving all the people of this great city. There's a lot to be proud of. We've improved recruiting, expanded training, and created a new public safety infrastructure that includes hundreds of new security cameras installed across our city. We've adopted a strict policy against racial profiling. We are engaging our communities at any one time our officers are involved in a shooting. We, of course, immediately turn over the sled for an independent investigation without exception. We've increased public safety funding over the last several years by $10 million. And next week we'll hold our public hearing with a budget that adds another $2.8 million. And we look at this report and you see the data here, and we understand it's so important that data drive our policy making. And I know that's a very important piece of Chief Holbrook's leadership here. You see that out of 168,000 calls for service, and I know the Chief's going to get into the statistics, 7,700 arrests, 426 firearms seized, 108 use of force incidents, that officers fired their weapons only 3 times this past year. I think that's remarkable. But most importantly, at the end of the day, this report is not about celebrating our accomplishments or even the accomplishments of these fine men and women in blue. It's about building trust. It's about recognizing the age in which we live when our citizens all across this country, their trust in those who are sworn to serve and protect is being eaten away because of unfortunate incidents all around our country by suspicion, fear, and frustration. We recognize that we can't hide behind a wall of silence or pretend to be perfect. You have to have the courage, as these men and this leadership of this department has shown, to step up, step forward and say, we're not perfect. That this job that these men and women do, it's not easy. It takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of integrity, and it takes, quite frankly, it takes the people's trust in order to do their job effectively. And that's what accountable, transparent leadership is about. That's what we have at the Columbia Police Department. We can't promise you perfection, but we can promise you integrity, we can promise you accountability, and we can promise you honesty. And I believe that's what today's report is all about. We have challenges, we won't hide behind them. We'll rise up and meet them together. And I just wanted to come here on behalf of all the City Council, on behalf of all the citizens of Columbia, on behalf of our City Manager, Teresa Wilson, and everyone else, just to say thank you to the Chief Kelly, and this entire leadership team for making this report happen. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon again, and I would first like to comment about 2 other, I think, important issues. First being, this is National Police Week. I think it's a fantastic opportunity during such an important week to make an announcement and make public such an important document. Most importantly, tomorrow is National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and I would encourage everyone to pause and remember anyone that's worn this badge that has given the ultimate sacrifice and service to their community tomorrow. These are trying times for communities and law enforcement. And if there's ever a time for us to come together, it's now. The second thing I'd like to say is how thankful I am to the members of this police department that made this report possible, our staff and the professional standards unit, but the men and women that this report represents. They've done an exceptional job. I'm very proud of them. And I really never like to speak without taking the opportunity to thank Ms. Wilson for giving me the opportunity to lead such a department like the Columbia Police Department. We have courageous, professional, dedicated public servants in this department, and we are going through times of transformation and growth, and it's exciting, but it's stressful. And I think the level of service that we see every day from these brave men and women is just remarkable. So I think the question here is, why do a report? And you know, it really comes down to just a few things. It's about building trust and legitimacy within the community. And if you remember, when we announced our strategic plan a few months back, one of our goals was to take a step to improve accountability and transparency, and this report certainly helps us achieve that. Relationship building between the police and the community began years ago here in Columbia, and I've mentioned that on several occasions, that I've just been extremely impressed and felt very lucky to walk into a department that had very, very strong community relationships. And we have an extremely diverse community, neighborhoods of different demographics and different needs and challenges, and those relationships that have been established by my predecessors, probably most notably Chief Austin, has developed relationships that allow us to overcome difficult times, and those are the relationships that we continue to build upon and put so much stock in. When I first realized that additional transparency and accountability was needed, I think really first occurred upon attending a community forum in Eau Claire shortly after the Ferguson, Missouri incident. It was a tough forum to participate in. Ms. Baskins, she moderated it. The mayor invited me. I thank him every day for that too. It was difficult. It's a difficult topic, but it really resonated with me. And what struck me was there was a disconnect, and we needed to bridge that disconnect. It was clearly there was mistrust between the police department and some members of the community, and you know, we have to recognize that and improve that. Specifically, I remember the mother of Johnny Mitchell, who was shot and killed during an armed confrontation with law enforcement in 2013, stand up and speak. And I remember, you know, my takeaway from that, because it's disturbing anytime that you have a confrontation between law enforcement and a citizen and it ends in a fatality. But what my takeaway was, we've really got to do a better job in sharing information in a timely manner, accurate information, providing that publicly, but also explaining ourselves in more of an open forum. And that was really what is behind this report and what we're trying to achieve. We need to provide that information timely, accurate, and just an easy read on what we do, when we do it, how we do it, and in areas such as our internal affairs structure and process. You know, how do you make a complaint, or then if you do, what do you expect from that? When we have officer-involved shootings, be able to share information publicly in a timely manner. When we use force, what's the nature of the force when we use it? What's our policies as it relates to it? What's the state law? What we do when we have criminal investigations involving employees, in custody deaths, some things that oftentimes gets kind of lost in the minutia is pursuits and collisions. We take that very seriously. That's probably our greatest liability is, we drive millions of miles every year, oftentimes in tough conditions with emergency equipment on, and not only does it put us in danger, but it can put the citizens in danger. So we monitor that stuff very, very tightly. We should make that public, and that's exactly what this report does. It does all that. Some of the key findings that are important that I'd like to share quickly with you. Everybody else can stand right where they are. I think what's most important is the number of calls for service that the mayor mentioned. Over 168,000 calls for service, and the uses of force only 108 times. That's remarkable. We only discharged a weapon at a person 3 times, and 24,000 traffic stops, over 7,000 arrests. And I'll leave the report for you all to dissect, but here's the takeaway from this, in my opinion. You hear a lot of buzzwords and stuff being thrown around this day and age, but what this report reflects to me is that we are making remarkably good decisions almost all the time. And these men and women are making split-second decisions every single day. If you look at the number of citizen contacts and just look at it in terms of how many times we use force, and that shows to me restraint, good decision-making, de-escalation, good communication, and we don't accept that as, even though we recognize these numbers are very good, we have areas that we can improve, and this document not only does it allow us to share information, but it causes us to drill down and kind of look beyond the numbers and identify areas that we can improve in training, improve in how we interpret the law, how we apply the law, maybe an equipment issue. Right now we're in the process of doing T&E on cameras. We know that's a hot button topic and something that we've committed to. We want to make the right decisions on policy, procedure, and on equipment. We're going to do our due diligence so we make sure that we equip our officers with the very best equipment that's the most reliable, so we can provide that accurate and timely information to the public. In closing, I thank you for your time to be here. We members of this police department, we take a lot of pride in each other and the service we provide. This is a document that we're proud of, and we're going to grow stronger as an institution because of it. And we hope that it's received from the citizens that we serve as our open and transparent and accountable process that we have in place to serve them. So thank you for coming.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
What specifically did you do to try to improve that, what you call the disconnection between the department and the community? What kind of steps did you take?
Well, the first step is producing this book to share publicly. If anybody that's attended any community meetings that I've been a part of in the last several months since we've been finalizing this report, as we are sharing this information, very publicly and just about everywhere we go, and we'll continue to do that. And I think again, the more transparent we can be, in text, in a booklet such as this, or on our website, or as we're having dialogue in meetings or exchanges in our schools, that's how we promote transparency. When we have media requests, that we respond to those requests quickly and provide the information that you all need to report about things involving the police department.
Chief, calls for service were down some 16,000 year to year. I'll have access to previous years, but that seems pretty marked, like 462 per day less average. What do you attribute that to?
I could probably take the high road, easy way out and say good policing, preventive policing, and I think that has some things to do with it. You know, we want to prevent crime through problem-solving partnerships, but quite frankly, when you have less police officers that are on the streets, I think that's going to have some impact on that number. We're still going to respond to calls for service, obviously. So it's not, I don't want anyone to think for a second that we're not responsive to calls for service, because if you really looked into that number, the number of calls for service where people are picking the phone up and calling for police is, you're not going to see that much disparity. But in terms of if you have less police officers, you know, proactively making a stop or writing a citation or making an arrest, that's where you'll see some impact on that.
Do you think, Chief, that the numbers that you guys have now is gonna help with recruiting even more officers to fill some of the maybe holes that you have in the department?
I think since the announcement of our recruiting, hiring, retention initiative, we've seen significant progress. Since the first of the year, we've hired 24. I just signed conditional offers on 5 more people today. The diversity that we're seeing in our recruitment and hiring strategy is paying dividends. The last numbers that I looked at percent-wise in terms of our hiring, we were about completely reflective of what our community is, and that's what we're shooting for. We break down the diversity numbers of our department in the booklet, which we see that we got to improve, but I would also submit that we're postured, I think, way above the curve when it comes to how a department reflects their community.
Chief, when you look at some of the incidents that have created national controversies that have originated here in South Carolina over the past year or so, and then you look at how your own department approaches those kinds of situations, have you seen anything there that has provided an object lesson to you as you try to avoid those situations?
Well, I think the most important thing that is in place here is you hear a lot of leaders after the fact, you know, make mention of this. You can't develop relationships post-incident, and those relationships have to be established in the community before critical incidents occur. I think that we have an incredible situation in South Carolina with having the state law enforcement division that is such a good partner with us and able to come in and provide that unbiased investigative response. Not only is it a respected organization within the state, but it's nationally respected, and I think that brings legitimacy to any time we have a critical incident. I think us being forthcoming with information is important to maintain public order. And again, it really, simply put, it all goes back to those relationships, and they're just very critical to helping any department or any company, for that matter, manage crisis.
And just scanning the section here on the use of deadly force, and given the fact that in the last calendar year, your officers only discharged their weapons 3 times, when you see that in some cases other departments here seem to have a problem where officers fire first and before fully assessing the situation, or it would appear so, is there something different in your training here or in your rules that prevent or inhibit officers from pulling the trigger too quickly?
Are you asking for something that distinguishes us from another department?
I'm just asking, I guess, is there something in your protocol for applying deadly force that would prevent situations that we've seen unfold in other jurisdictions?
No, sir.
Where the triggers are pulled rather quickly before the events begin to unfold?
No, I don't think I could say that. I think one of the things you do see in South Carolina, again, is consistency. with a state academy that every officer is being trained the same way. I think that's important. You know, use of force policy and procedure is very consistent from department to department. It's supported by state and federal law that has to be followed. You know, deadly force situations comes down to you know, officer perception and good decision making, and that oftentimes is on an individual basis. You certainly provide that training. Experience comes into play there, but you know, candidate selection in the recruitment process, I think, is so important these days, and proper psychological testing and basic training, and then reinforcing the training that you've had throughout, you know, each year through in service and throughout your career.
I think when you had your news conference late last year with the mayor here, among the things that were proposed were things like some sensitivity training and some other programs that would be designed towards conflict resolution, or at least attempts to go towards conflict resolution as opposed to confrontation. Are you making any progress on those issues or on that agenda?
We are, and we just most recently, the number of officers, we did a train-the-trainer on recognizing mental illness. We've incorporated some of these in de-escalation topics in our upcoming in-service training, and those training opportunities that present themselves through whether it's speakers or trainers on the national level or state and local, we're taking advantage of that. We're getting ready to participate in some joint leadership training with Richland County. I think anytime we can partner with other agencies and be force multipliers and take advantage of each other's training opportunities, we're going to take advantage of that, and we're doing that now.
Chief, what role will Citizens Advisory Councils play in the future for the Columbia Police Department?
It's going to be some role. That's something that is going to be discussed at work session on Tuesday. I'm preparing a recommendation for city manager and the mayor and council to consider on how we move forward with that. Clearly, some citizen review is necessary, and we're very open to that concept. I think it has to be done in a thoughtful, meaningful way that reinforces the good decisions and conduct of our officers, but provides us important feedback to make decisions as we move forward in terms of training and recruiting and policy development and procedures. So I think it's an exciting opportunity for us as a community and the police department to work together as we continue to develop and modify how we police in the 21st century.
You have a job fair underway today. What's your current status in terms of trying to fill those vacancies? Are you still struggling, and what is the number of people you have on in vacancies right now?
I think at last count we're at 37. As I just stated, we have hired 24 year to date, and I just signed 5 conditional offers today.
Those are 37 positions in sworn office.
Yes.
You're looking to fill.
Yes, sir.
Chief, can you briefly comment on the active search for the suspect in the teacher in Wall Street? Is he considered armed dangerous?
Well, yes, we would consider anybody that shoots someone in the commission of a robbery, very dangerous, and we're actively looking for him at this time.
Chief, in these numbers you reflect, you're pretty positive and thankful for the numbers you see. Where does the improvement need to be made in the department? I mean, obviously, recruitment is one area that needs more officers on the street. But what do you see other needs there to be in this upcoming year and years to come?
Well, we really want to drill down and, examine our uses of force and when they're occurring and where they're occurring. We obviously want to focus on, we want to make sure that bias policing is not in effect, that we're not applying force or applying the law inconsistently. We also want to continue to focus on our driving, make sure our collisions continue to reduce. We want to have cars to drive, but we also want to make sure the public is protected. But, I can't overemphasize, even though we identify areas that we need to improve upon, these numbers are absolutely incredible, in my opinion. And it's just it's a testament to the employees that we have, that we've selected to be police officers here and have dedicated their life to serving this community. All right, thank you all.